know if I.
Yeah, I don't see a screen.
It's dark.
Since it's not starting, I'm going to come down. You have a collection. Oops. Oh, those are not.
Yeah, those are just
something else.
screen things.
You need here, Carol. I got it. If it works, I mean, I might have a half dozen.
Good morning.
that don't work.
I'd like to call the May 10th County Board meeting to order. Roll call would indicate all commissioners are present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first item would be approval of the agenda. Everybody should have a chance to look at it. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
Persky second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mergen and Persky. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is a public access forum. Mike, is there anybody online? No?
Nobody remote, no.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak at the public access forum? You're allowed up to 3 to 4 minutes. The county board will not engage in dialogue. Doesn't appear anybody is here for the public access forum. One more time. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Everyone get a chance to look at the consent agenda. Be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Clark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Mergen. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then our next regular agenda item is Great River Regional Library presentation. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Karen Punzak. I'm Executive Director for Great River Regional Library. It's a pleasure to have some time to talk to you in person today. I have with me Kateri Gruber, who is our Library Services Coordinator for Belgrade and Paynesville, and she'll be sharing some stories of how the library was successful in her communities last year. In your packet, you will see we have our 2021 year-end numbers impact report and then the Great River Regional Library annual report. There's some real great highlights in both. One of the things that really stood out last year is even though it was a somewhat abnormal year of delivering services, a year ago we couldn't have programs yet or have people in groups in meeting rooms, but the numbers look fairly normal. And I think that just is testament to our staff and how they were able to continue to pivot and deliver services at the highest possible level as those restrictions started to lift going into the summer. One of the pieces that really changed since COVID started was the increased use of our digital library. And that has continued to stay strong and increase even into 2022. So as people were able to learn how to use that platform, they've stayed on the platform. The other piece that really came to be is we had a new library open in the midst of all this out in Kimball. If you haven't had a chance to go visit it, it is a really fabulous location. And it is a great new space for us out on Highway 55. So I encourage everyone to go out there and visit. The other thing that changed last year, at the beginning of this year, we expanded our fines-free efforts. So in June of 2019, we went fines-free on kids' materials, and we saw a major increase in the use of juvenile materials throughout the pandemic and even into 2022. So we wanted to increase the usage of our physical collection as fewer and fewer, we have more and more people with transportation issues, access issues, reasons why you can't get to the library in real time. And so we worked through this at the Great River Board and have seen this as a real way of streamlining the way we deliver services. We still charge for books if they don't come back, and we limit access if they don't come back. But if you don't bring them back today, there's no fine. And, you know, we had gotten to the point where collecting a quarter across the desk was probably costing us more than a quarter. So it was a real way of making things more efficient within the library and in addition to increasing access. Last year, we also signed a new agreement with the city of Sartell. When we started that pilot project back in 2017, we had a major investment by the city of Sartell in the actual locker system. Over time, we found out that the locker system is also technology, so we've moved away from a capital purchase to a lease agreement, but it is now a 6-year lease agreement with the city of Sartell to continue DRL to go services next year, or for the coming 6 years. The other piece I wanted to share is the Great River Board realized in the midst of the pandemic that it is really important to have more access, especially in our smaller communities. So we added open hours in 27 libraries last year, starting in January, including Albany, Belgrade, Cold Spring, Kimball, Melrose, Painesville, Richmond, Sauk Center, and Way Park. And credit to our staff, we didn't do this by hiring people. We did this by talking to our staff and figuring out how we could make the schedules more accessible to the public and still be something our staff can work. And that's a real challenge when the majority of our staff are part-time employees. So credit to them for being flexible and thinking of the public in addition to meeting their own personal needs through employment at Great River. And I also want to extend a thank you to Commissioner Lensmeyer, who's been serving on our board and our Fund Development Committee for several years. He's also Vice President of the Great River Board and the Chair of our Finance Committee this year. We also have some great citizen representatives on the Great River Board, including Dr. Zuria Anjum. She's done some multiple testimonials for state library funding at the House over the past year. Lynn Gruing, who's a new addition to the Great River Board this year. She's been a fantastic new addition. Al Amdahl, who's also city councilman out in Albany, and George Fiedler, who's from the St. Stephen area. So we have some real good, strong advocates from all over the county serving on the board, helping us make decisions on how to deliver services. So I will let Kateri tell you a little bit about the programs that we were offering over the past year and how that looked in her communities.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I mention a few things for my Painesville and Belgrade locations. I will mention with the new open hours has been great. When I came on board in 2020 with the shifts in staff and hours, we actually were able to put out a community service and reorganize our open hours for what was available. And then when we got extra hours in 2021, it allowed us to extend our hours a little bit to open during like after school hours. So it's been nice seeing those different audiences patrons being able to come in and use the library when it was available, when they needed it. So some of the things we've been doing since we were still not using our physical space so much last year, we were able to take advantage of our community locations. And so you can see they have some, they were talking about the story strolls on the report. So we did a lot of those out at the park. So Painesville, we have a park that's right across from the elementary. So it was great. The classes could just walk over and go read a story with their classes. And for Belgrade, that meant we could also expand to some of our outside communities. We went out to Bruton and used their city park and put up story strolls for the community there. And they've been really grateful that we've been extending our services out that way with some of our outdoor programming. And we were also able to do our legacy program. We were able to offer one of the paper planes events up there. You can see the, let's see, which one is that? The middle picture. We were creating this paper that you can actually either send to someone or you can actually plant it and grow your own native plants. So that was a fun program we brought, and we had about 50 people that came to the Belgrade one, which we're a very small town out there. So that was a great draw for our community. We also, for this year, I can talk about our locally grown, if that's all right, yeah. We did an extraordinary job at our locally grown. Our goal was raise $250 at both of our locations, aiming to purchase Playaway audiobooks and Wonder Books for kids. And we kind of smashed it out of the park. We raised $775 at Painesville, and we raised over $1,000 in Belgrade. And so these are actually items that we're hoping to fill a need that, because there's so much online streaming right now, we're running into people who no longer have CD players for our audiobooks. But we also have the communities or the people who don't know how to use the online streaming apps. And so these items are items that you can literally just plug in a headset and hit play, and they read you the story. So they don't require a CD, they just have a little battery. So we are excited to provide that little, fill that little gap of accessibility and add these to our collections. Anything else? The parks passes. Yeah, the Quarry Park ones. Yeah. So we have the Quarry or the Stearns County Park passes that people can check out for a week at a time. And it gives them free access to all the parks. And one of the major draws is actually the Quarry Park here. So they don't have to pay for parking. It gives them free parking, and they can use it for, in the summer for swimming and walking, and then in the winter for hiking and cross-country skiing. So that's been a big draw at some of the libraries, and bringing the outlying communities in to use the parks here as well.
Can I say, how do they come in and get the pass from the library?
What was that?
How do they do that? Come to the library and get a
Yeah,
pass?
so each library has 2 passes that they can check out at one time. So we give them, scan it, give them a receipt that they put in their car window, and it acts like a pass that they can use for the whole week. And then after that week, they can throw it, and we can check it out to the next patron.
Oh, okay, thanks.
We really appreciate that collaboration. The timing couldn't have been better, because we also had a grant for some of our other locations where there's state parks passes to check out. That will be extended to the St. Cloud location this year through a partnership with the DNR. So we were able to do the promotion for both the Stearns County Parks passes and those state park passes at the same time. I just want to thank Stearns County for the support that they give to the library system. You're our largest funder of all the sources of funding within our operating budget, and we recognize that in the way that we try to deliver services, not just in St. Cloud, but across the whole county. Our services continue to change. I mean, we're checking out hotspots now. That wasn't something even imagined 5 years ago, and that's a program that we're continuing to expand. We look at our computer usage, and it's come back, but it's not at the level it was back in 2019. It's partly because of hotspots, and it's partly because we offer a new service called Print to Go, where you can come into the library and just print with your phone. So thank you for allowing us that flexibility to deliver the services our public needs in the moment, even when we haven't imagined them yet. So continue to send your feedback, because if you get it, we're always looking for different ideas on what we should do next. So if we have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Thanks.
Any questions for Karen or Kateri? No? Well, thank you for coming in today. And
Mr. Chair, sorry,
Yes.
it's not a question.
Commissioner Clark?
I know that I'm not alone. We just really appreciate everything. And I got to tell Karen, our little granddaughter got to go in for the first time yesterday since, COVID. And what an exciting place. What a wonderful world to explore, and what opens up children's eyes and minds, and as well as the rest of ours. I'm glad to see that your first book listed is a book of what adults have checked out the most. Is one of the books our book group did.
Nice.
So
Good
thank
choice.
you. I know our book group uses that, your ability to check out books for groups too. So
Yeah, we have lots of different things for lots of different
yeah,
people.
you do. It's cool.
So Karen, do you have, do the school districts, do they bring like classes to the libraries on
Yeah.
occasion? And
Yeah, you probably can talk about this more than I can, because Kateri is hot in it's that season right now.
Yeah, we either get invited to come out to the classrooms and talk about the library, or especially our summer reading program is kind of the big draw right now. Last week, I actually just had pre-K classes, our 4-year-olds that came to the library and actually did a tour And we got to read them a book and talk about books and how you take care of your books, and then give them information to take home with their parents about the summer reading program. But yeah, that's a big thing right now in May. And then sometimes in the open houses in the fall that we have classes either come or we go there.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun.
Commissioner Persky?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that those hotspots are important to a lot of folks that are the have-nots out there. We're hoping to remedy some of those conditions with our broadband proposal, but I don't know if we'll get everybody, but that's greatly appreciated. So, yeah.
There was a major legislative change early in 2020 that allowed us to start using our telecommunications aid, and that's how one of the sources of funding that launched the program. We're to the point now where we're also finding it's one of those ideas that just keeps growing, and so we started with a fund development project in Piers, turned into 6 locations. Now we have hotspots in all locations. We have a 1-week checkout on them, and our hope is to get to a 3-week checkout in all locations and double the hotspots by the end of the year because the demand's that high.
Yeah.
It might not be something we're doing in 5 years, but it helps bridge the gap for the people who need it right now.
And the park passes, we're going to have temperature in the 80s this week, but I don't think the water will be warm enough to go.
There's probably some brave souls who did the polar plunge. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's face it, we got Minnesota kids. They might actually be willing to go out.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and we've got some big, I should have mentioned earlier, we've got 2 building projects kind of looming in Stearns County right now. I don't know, looming's, Painesville is probably going to happen. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think the last time I was here, we were talking about maybe moving into the Shopko facility. Right now, the city is looking at a location that's currently owned by Centricare. They're doing a major study on the building in the next couple of weeks to look at whether that's a possible location to move not just the library, but also the City Hall and DMV. Cold Springs continuing to talk about what makes sense for their facility. The library there was built in 1984, which, was before computers. So it's we do the best we can with what we've got there, but it's been a real challenge to work in that facility, and hopefully we can come to a new solution there. So hopefully the next time I'm here, there's progress on both of those, and we can talk about what that looks like.
Sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Next up is Public Works. Morning, Jody.
Good morning. For my item today, I want to discuss naming the County Road 13 bridge in Melrose over the Sauk River. As you're aware, that bridge replacement is currently underway. They've been going since about December. I was approached by the Melrose Area Historical Society, 2 individuals from there. They wanted to name the bridge. Now, this is not something that we typically do, so I certainly wanted official board action, and we'll also want official city council action. So in your packets, there is some information on Edwin Clark. Evidently, the Historical Society considers him the father of Melrose, and there's some information on what he has done for the area and when he moved to the area and the businesses he started. The city council has acted just by consensus. They generally agreed with this. I am not opposed to naming the bridge, and if the county board would approve and subsequently the Melrose City Council would take official action, the county would put up standard road signs, white lettering on brown background on each side of the bridge. I know that the city has talked about some other stuff going on along the dam retaining walls, et cetera. So I don't know if you have any questions. I know Commissioner Notch has also been approached by at least one of these individuals. So I don't know if there are any questions or concerns about naming the bridge. Like I said, it's not something we've typically done, but what I would ask or recommend is that the board approve naming the County Road 13 bridge over the Sauk River, the Edwin Clark Memorial Bridge. And again, that action would be contingent on the Melrose City Council taking official action at one of their board meetings.
What is the board's wishes? I know the mayor talked to me, as did Mr. Paschke from the Historical Society of Melrose, and I guess the comments were the county nor the city, I think, wants to outlay a lot of money to do this, which I guess the Historical Society is kind of would spearhead if, and Jody and I had talked too, and we're not going to change anything with the bridge to cause a change order either, which would make it more expensive to finish the bridge.
Again, these would be, standard road signs. You see them on the side of trunk highways where we've got sections of Memorial Highway. So again, it would be standard road signs that the county would put up at each end of the bridge.
Do you have any objection to naming it?
I don't have any objection, but I do want a process to do this because we certainly don't want a lot of requests coming in. This is something, like I said, the city council thought was probably a good idea. And again, as Commissioner Notch stated, it would not be a lot of money for us. Just the cost of the 2 signs and then to put them up.
I would move for approval.
A second.
Motion by Commissioner Mergen, second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Lee?
Just this observation, I appreciate the local concern over potential expenditures for issues like this. I would just make the observation that the cheaper and the easier you make this, the more of these requests we'll get. And I don't have a particular point I want to make on whether we want to encourage or discourage this, but clearly cost is one opportunity for a degree of control over the process. So it's a tool we can use depending upon what happens.
All right, any further comment?
I'll just respond to Lee's comments. Yeah, and oftentimes if we got a group that's pushing this project, perhaps they can come with the resources. That would maybe help.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Commissioner Mergen?
Just a little side note here. You look on page 65, number 5, it says Part C. He built this large house, which later became the hospital. I had my appendix out when I was 8 years old in that hospital. And my tonsils out when I was 5 years old in that hospital.
Well, now we understand.
Yeah, that should tell you something.
Oh, I wondered what the issue was.
Okay, we'll carry that motion then. Any further items, Jody?
I don't have any miscellaneous unless the board has anything for me.
Anyone have anything for Jody? It doesn't appear so. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll recess our regular meeting and open the Human Services Board meeting.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, Melissa Huberty, I'm the Human Services Administrator, and there's only one item on our regular Human Services Board agenda today. It's F1 on page 67, and we would just like to recognize the month of May as Foster Care Provider Month. We'd like to take some time to celebrate these incredible people that offer their time and their love and their households to take care of children and adults in our county. They're a very valuable resource and very much appreciated. And I have with me today Nick Henderson, who's the Family and Children's Services Director in Human Services. He's going to say just a couple words and then read the proclamation. And with your approval, we'll just move forward with recognizing our foster care providers in Stearns County.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Nicholas Henderson, Human Services Director, Family and Children's Division. In May, we recognize the important role members from all parts of the child welfare system play in supporting children, youth, and families. In May, we celebrate relative and non-relative foster providers who have committed to having a positive impact on the families and children we serve. Foster families provide daily care, including preparing family meals, providing structure, stability, and guidance to the lives of children who have often been traumatized. Foster parents play a critical role in helping children and families in crisis. Stearns County continues to need foster parents to care for the children in need of out-of-home placement. Foster homes for older children and sibling groups are in particular need. The work of our foster parents is some of the most difficult and thankless work as they nurture, form supportive relationships, and ensure their daily needs are met. Our foster parents ensure the children remain connected to their family and culture. Stearns County wants to recognize and support and thank every one of our foster care providers. And if I may, I'll read the proclamation.
Sure, go ahead, Nick.
All right. Whereas the family serving as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support in the very foundation of our community, and whereas in Stearns County, there are children and youth in foster care being provided with a safe, secure, and stable home along with compassion and nurture of a foster family. And whereas all young people in foster care need a meaningful connection to a caring adult who becomes supportive and lasting presence in their lives. And whereas foster, kinship, and adoptive families who open their homes and hearts support children whose families are in crisis, play a vital role in helping children and families heal and reconnect, thereby launching young people into successful adulthood. And whereas dedicated foster families frequently adopt foster children, resulting in greater need for more foster families. And whereas there are numerous individuals, public and private organizations who work to increase the public's awareness of the need of the children of the need of the children in and leaving foster care, as well as enduring and valuable contributions of foster parents. And the foster care system is only as good as those who choose to be a part of it. Whereas all citizens need to be more aware of the care and support provided by our foster families in Stearns County. Now therefore it be resolved that Stearns County Human Services Board does hereby proclaim May as Foster Care Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
And we're available for questions, should you have them.
Any questions from the board? Otherwise, the motion, go ahead, Lee.
There are some remarkable stories in the group of folks that choose to be foster parents. I'm thinking of one particular couple that I think they've been doing this for 30 years. I wouldn't, as part of this job, I'm supposed to be aware of this stuff. But the reality is, the reason I'm aware of this couple is because he, for many years, was the assistant hockey coach at Cathedral. And that's how I came to know this. But they're just an example of some remarkable folks that are out there. And I hadn't talked to him about it before the meeting, so I'm not going to share his name. But I'm glad that there's folks like that out there.
I've talked to some of these families too, and and we all know it's if you've had children, it's tough enough raising your own, and then now bringing somebody else's into your fold, it's challenging at times.
Well, you don't know their story,
right?
Yeah, our foster care providers and our child care providers are just simply amazing, honestly.
Yeah, and we're focused on, we're making comments about children, which often are some of the most traumatic situations. And we do have a number of vulnerable adults that are in as well. And that can be a whole different or extended array of special skills.
Yes.
All right, with that, we're looking for a motion to
So
the
moved.
resolution. Okay, motion by Commissioner Lenzmeyer.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Further discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Nick. All right, with that, we will close the Human Services Board and reconvene our regular board meeting. And up next is administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I put a paper map in front of you at the dais. And if I can get control, I will show the map on the screen too. Control room, my screen says it's unavailable while the control room is controlling. There we go, thank you. So that's fairly legible. There's a lot going on in this map, so my apologies for that, but I thought it was a good, the best way to depict where we are with the broadband project. And as a reminder, the county board approved $16 million to fund this project. And we have proposals to cover a large part of the county. So if you recall, we have a proposal in the far northwest part of the county covering this area. We have a proposal covering this whole area here, and it's actually in two sections. So this is called the north, and I think I called this the south. Then we have a proposal up in the northeast part that is broken out in two pieces. This color here is the phase 1, and then phase 2 is here, and then we have a proposal covering some of the southeast portion down here. I thought we were going to get a proposal. We had a company considering a proposal for the southwest section, and they notified me late last week that they are not going to do that. So we're still without a proposal there. So, and as you know, we've invited our townships particularly to support this project, and by and large, we're seeing support, and I'd like to review that with you too. So every one of these approved is a township that has approved participation. And as you remember, we had a formula, and we said up to half of their ARP dollars. So those are there that are, say, approved, and then I've highlighted a few here: Raymond, Sauk Center, Melrose, Brockway, and those township boards just haven't taken action yet. I believe that they will all approve, I think. And so that leaves us with I believe we'll have township approval for all the areas in this northwest and north and northeast. We're lacking some. In fact, we have a no here from Munson and a no down here from Main Prairie. Main Prairie is not very many parcels, but the Munson is smack in the middle of that south proposal and has quite a few premises that are unserved and unserved. So, and thank you to commissioners. I think everybody's been involved in talking to the township office. In fact, during my performance evaluation, I think there was a comment, I think it came from Commissioner Clark actually, it said, maybe you could use commissioners a little more as you interact with the public. I think that was the gist of it, and a light bulb went off on me, and I was immediately calling the more rural commissioners because we needed help in these areas, and you've been great. So, so something good does come from performance evaluations. Anyway, and then you can see in every little box here, I've tried to at least make an estimate of where we would be. And so if you look at that, the northeast section, for example, the phase 1 there is, and this is a firm proposal, $5.5 million with a subsidy of 50%. And then I've estimated where we would be with township contribution, and then said, well, what could we perhaps expect in a border-to-border grant? And so in that, and that provider is intent on making a border-to-border application. And so in this case, I've shown a $2.2 million border-to-border fund and $520,000 from the county's fund. And the second phase of the Northeast has an estimated $10 million, that estimate is from the provider, by the way, an estimated $10 million cost with, again, a 50% subsidy, and again, gone through the same gyration there and suggested that we would fund that at $550,000. And you'll see that those two areas have less of a county subsidy, predominantly because they're more densely populated. And you kind of see that as we get into, for example, that northwest and north section and even the south section, those are much less densely populated, and so the subsidy requirement is going up, not only from the county, but period. We need more than 50%. So then if we go to the north section, you can see the same thing there, ending with, and that provider has committed to applying for border-to-border, the north and the south. And you can see the border-to-border there, if you combine those two, it's $5 million, which I believe is going to be the maximum amount, at least for this upcoming round. It sounds like the state's going to increase that maximum maybe for the next rounds, although that hasn't been settled by the conference committee. It looks like they might go up to 75%. So the county subsidy there is hefty for those two. It's a bit over $10 million, $10,179,000. And then if we move to the far northwest there, and that is another proposal there that is a total cost of over $6 million. Actually, I just received a clarification on that proposal. The numbers look a little better, and I haven't had a chance to calculate because I just got it yesterday. But anyway, this is pretty close, and they had pledged to apply for border to border, not in the first round. They don't want to do it in the first round. I think they have enough work, but then they would in a future round. And so we haven't talked with them, but you know, if they could get over $3 million, then we would put 1.6 in. The Southwest, unfortunately, we have no proposal, and that is somewhat of a wild guess on my part what that cost will be. But nevertheless, I've set aside funds that could be used when we get a proposal there in the future. And then the Southeast is, you know, they didn't quite follow. They picked a much smaller area. But as we've talked about this, and most of it's in the city of Rockville, and the city of Rockville has so far said that they would pledge all of their ARP dollars, which is about $340,000 to the project. And so what's suggested here is that we would pursue that agreement without border to border and just fund it so we could get that work done as soon as possible. And recall that provider has a lot of service going on around it. And so we think that if we fund this, you know, it'll help them continue to expand. I'll be in front of the Rockville City Council tomorrow night and would expect that they will formally approve the use of those funds. So I'm fully expecting that. Their council has actually talked about it and said they would fund it, but they wanted a little more information. So I've considered that as approved. And so as you can see here, you know, if everything happened just as we've laid out here, which unfortunately depends a lot on the border grant program, or if we could get a provider to apply for a federal grant too, which would be great. It would be nice if we could get an influx of some of the federal money so we don't rely so much on the border to border. But as you can see, if this all would come out, you know, like we've laid out here, we would be spending underneath the $16 million. And the reason for that, I think in a previous update, we had used all of the 16 million. This is just relying on more border or grants, period. Because as you can see, just not going to get the job done without that. And I really think we need to plan for a proposal in that Southwest area and hope that we can help fund that. So that's where we are today. I don't know what we do with that south section if we don't have good township participation. I think that's a question that we still need to answer. Providers are not very interested in like going around a township or anything like that. You know, there are some things we could do that would limit the costs in those townships. For example, not do the drops or something like that. We've talked with providers about that. They're not excited about that. But really right now, I only see that south area as the one that doesn't have good township participation. And maybe that'll come around. But we could wait on that section too. That provider actually made their proposal in two pieces.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner.
Mike, was that coming out of Meeker County to access Kimball, the Kimball area, that south area? Where was that perhaps going to come from?
Oh, the Kimball area is pretty well covered.
But I mean, then up into Main Prairie there.
That's Midco, and there's almost all of that proposal is within Rockville, and there are some parcels, quite a few parcels in Main Prairie Township, and I don't think they're going to participate. They were a recipient of the board's action a couple of weeks ago that gave them some previous CARES funding, and so I've notified them of that, but I have not heard back yet.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're going to reconsider or not.
Okay.
I think those parcels could be easily kind of taken out, and we do, in some ways, want to reduce that Midco alternative because we're above 50%. I don't really think we should be, but it's not too far up above.
Is that Vibrant too far from them? But are they also? That's not necessarily fiber. Is that power?
They're Vibrant. They made some proposals that were really very small areas, and they're not marked on the map because they're all covered with some of these other proposals. Okay. So they early on indicated they weren't going to come very far into the county. And so they did but we had like three little areas that Meeker Electric did, or Vibrant did make a proposal for. And I've been talking to them, but some of them were not unserved and underserved. Some of them were covered by the provider in the south here, so nothing's really coming to fruition with Vibrant at this point. Yeah, because I don't think the board wants to fund unserved and underserved if possible.
Isn't Vibrant, though, isn't that mostly tower to,
Wireless.
yeah, wireless? It's not,
Commissioner, it is, but in these proposals, they were going to bring fiber to the home. And they're doing more of that, yeah.
okay.
Our expectation is fiber to the premise, and that's what they were proposing to do.
And I know one of those sections was the south side of Lake Coronis, where they come up there. Commissioner Clark?
Thank you. This continues just to be an intricate puzzle, and just really appreciate your work. I'm wondering with that, we obviously already have a few areas that we think are more of a phase 2. I'm not sure exactly what this may be here. You've been talking about border to border, perhaps a provider going and looking at the federal. Is there any conversation? And obviously, I've talked about it's a little ways off about the federal money coming to the state. Because clearly we'll have some projects that are ready to go, but there may be some other resources if they're not quite ready. So where is that in the mix, if at all?
Well, I think it's in the mix, definitely. We're up against the deadline of having to spend our ARP dollars, not necessarily spend, but at least have contracts in place committed by the end of 2024. So we have some time, but we don't have
it's gone fast.
Lots of time. So if the state, gets a program out there, yeah, the Northwest section is not ready now, and the phase 2 is not ready now. We don't even have a proposal for Southwest, so we do.
We'll have some opportunities.
We'll have some opportunities, or we'll need some opportunities after this first round of border to border, and if we don't get those funded, we'll still be needing those funds. But, I'm a little concerned of having, $7.2 million request into border to border, depending on how much they will put in one county. I don't know that the border will do that. But we have a great story. Covering huge areas. So at first I didn't think that was a reasonable strategy, but that provider is intent on applying. So I guess if we apply and don't get funded, we're going to be up in line in the next round.
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed or heard, and this is probably just because the counties and townships never really talk directly, but I know some of the county supervisor or township supervisors are like, well, this seems like it's going so fast, and I think, because the opportunity is there and they're not used to that, needing to react that quick. And once I have explained it to some of them, they're like, oh, okay, we get it now, because this ARP money that, we got to have it used. And,
right, and Mr. Chair, thinking too, I think for a number of them, the more we have ready, then the less time. Like I keep thinking, we don't want to wait 10 years for them to be able to get actual service, right? And we know that between challenges with obtaining product and then making sure there's enough workforce for some of them too, it's like, okay, we want to act fast because we want to be closer up in the front of the line as opposed to later. And I think even with some of these other funds, it looks like we need to go back. Like as you said, Dr. Williams, we've got such a good story to tell, and the need is so great. The need's so great. I think, I was wondering too, given how many communities are in more than one county, if the state, while they would say, hey, this is a lot to quote unquote Stearns County, it could make a difference for people in more than one I don't know if Midco's looking on either side of the border there, but anyway, so that's another selling point. Keeping on thinking about the school districts, where so many of those communities are.
Yeah, if they could partner, like Candy, Ohio could partner with that
Absolutely.
southwest corner and
Right.
say, hey, maybe with us and Stearns together, might, but I don't know where Candy, Ohio County is with any of this either, if they've committed anything even.
Yeah, and that's a conversation that we'll have soon now that we don't have a proposal there again when we thought we were gonna.
But I think we all appreciate the work you've done, Mike, because this has been a long process, and meeting all these townships, and trying to get the story out there, has not been easy, and it probably won't be until we can get more approvals up there. But thanks for all the work you've done so far.
We have agreements drafted, so hopefully we'll be distributing those and talking to those with the providers. I don't think it's going to be too difficult. It's a very similar to some that have been used in other areas, and particularly with ARVIG, it's been used. So I think we shouldn't have a long negotiation process. The key is to look to the future on these other ones to make sure that they're willing to make those applications with us. And we need to tell this whole story in those applications, and those providers aren't used to doing that, so we're going to have to make sure we get that within these grant applications, but we will. So that'll probably be the next time I think you'll see this is we'll have some contracts to bring agreements with the providers to put before you. I know the board said to go pursue them, but they probably should come back to you for approval.
Okay, Commissioner Percy.
Yeah, Mike, again, thanks for all the work. Tremendous number of hours. It's like painting the ceiling in Sistine Chapel, I know. And and it's pretty well painted. You did a nice job. But what about the state border-to-border dollars? Is there a finite amount of money there that we may not be able to acquire it all? And so where are we? I mean, across the state, thinking of how many other counties are trying to do the same thing we are, when or would the money run out, and so that we might be able to realize part of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. We still expect there to be 2 rounds of border-to-border this year. Just don't know how much there's going to be in funding for the round 2 conference. Both sides of both the House and the Senate approved bills, but one was as low as I think 30 million, and the other one was 100 million, or maybe a little over 100 million. And there's some suggested changes to go about 50%, and some program changes too. So in the past, they've tried to, I think, distribute the dollars throughout the state, of course, not concentrate anywhere. You suggested other counties will be doing this, and I would suggest that other counties are not doing it like this. You're going to see areas, smaller amounts of money being allocated to certain areas, not something that's going to take in the whole county. So again, I think we have a good story, but there's still a concern. I mean, if we're asking for, I see us asking for $7.5 million, that's a big number to go to one county. It's a competitive process, and we'll do the best we can, but we might not get both funded. I'm confident, I would think we'll get this, we'll get the large one funded. But who knows in the end?
Time will tell.
And one other, there's federal money that comes out and will be coming out. None of these, well, aside from Midco, I don't think any of these providers have experience in that. They all have experience with border to border. That's kind of what their go-to has been. But that doesn't mean we can't make an application in conjunction with them for some of the federal money that comes out. The Reconnect grant was due, a couple of months ago. None of our providers were involved in that. One of our proposers has an application in, and it would cover this area right here. So if they're successful, this provider here, Albany Tel, they wouldn't move into that area, and it might save us some costs. They work well together with SciTech. So there's some of that kind of thing going on too. But it would be very helpful if if the federal money would come back to the state, or if there was another grant opportunity through the feds, and I think we could apply for some of those too.
Sounds good. Commissioner Clark?
Thanks. I have a quick question. I wasn't sure if you wanted, it seemed like it might make sense since you're doing a broadband update for us to talk about the affordable connectivity program right now instead of Wade. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So one of the things, and if you all don't have them yet, I will make sure to send you or Janet or Mike or somebody else. Well, there was you might be familiar, there's a program that was done through the bipartisan infrastructure bill that's called the Affordable Connectivity Program. And it's a benefit that about 48 million Americans households, so it's a lot of households, like 40%. Can potentially tap into, because we're obviously working on two parts of this, the connectivity part and then the affordability part. There was and it's only $30 a month, but there was a major announcement yesterday of agreements with a number of providers, including like AT&T and Verizon and Comcast, et cetera, and then some smaller ones, which I'm hoping maybe some of our providers that are coming forward in this plan would also agree to that. They're offering packages based on that $30 to people who could tap into that program, and what they've agreed to at least 100 megs download. So this would be real. So when we think about the households that have got a couple school kids that are trying to do homework, or somebody on a farm that's trying to use some precision equipment but can't quite get it, if we get the connectivity piece that we're working on, this is the kind of thing that could help them. So it's pretty much households that are 200% or below poverty, that somebody's on Medicaid, free and reduced school lunch Pell Grants, so some students. So for a lot of our residents, this is that other piece. So we might have some areas where we already have coverage, but we've seen with the take-up rates, whether it's some seniors who are lower income or families just struggling to make ends meet, they can't quite do it. So it's pretty exciting. There ought to be some ways that we can, make a difference, including through libraries, school districts. Lee, I'm looking at you now through our area agency on aging. We just got some really good opportunities. And I got lucky enough, I got to go to the White House for this announcement yesterday. So I was pretty excited with my NACO hat. As you know, I chair the Telecom and Technology Committee there. And this is in large part, I think, happened because counties and county commissioners have kept talking about, so when you were talking, Commissioner Notch, about township officers, like this going so fast, just the fact that we now have township officers as well as county commissioners that can articulate a need is helping push all of this. So it's a small thing that will make a difference for a lot of people. And I think that's part of what we try to do. Lee, I keep thinking about what you're talking about. Can we just make things a little better? This is something that can.
How long is that commitment good for? Yeah.
So it's going to be an ongoing one. They're trying to get more providers in, and the funds are part of the broader budget. So I'll see. I don't think they're only committing for this isn't sign up now and then we're going to raise you, double it soon.
Yeah, so I was wondering if they'll commit to that for 2 years, 1 year.
My understanding is it is a longer one. I will get the full information because I think that's a really important question. This partially came about because when that emergency benefit first came out during COVID, a number of providers said, fine, we'll take it, but we're jacking up our fees. Mm-hmm. And, as we were hearing from, I was actually thinking about Kelly Martini and the challenges between her kids and childcare, just how expensive it is. This is the kind of thing that could make a difference. So I will get back to you on that. It's not supposed to be a short-term piece. They got pushed into this because of what had happened originally. And let's face it, if companies are subsidies needed to actually make the fiber work, we get that from a business model standpoint. It's not going to happen. And there's a lot of money that's coming out to everybody. So we all want to make sure that funds are, and it ends up being affordable, not just there. So it's pretty exciting.
Oh, good. Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.
All right, next up, we have issues by commissioners. Commissioner Lenzmeyer, would you like to start it off?
Yeah, the public hearing that we had at the last meeting brought to mind the idea that perhaps we need to get some clarification or at least make some awareness of situations where people are proposing more intensive uses than the infrastructure can support. That's fancy terminology for saying what this individual wanted to do was to have a lake property become more intensively used than was ever envisioned way back when. For example, the structure, a lot of the structures that are the lake properties that are out there are older structures. They're not built to anything close to what would meet code. The fire protection becomes an issue in those properties. In fact, even getting emergency vehicles to these properties, since they are going to be more intensively used, the likelihood of having some incident take place is greater. What I got out of really looking at that as a case study was the access that served that property is 110 years old. Today's fire equipment, today's ambulance equipment, could it really get back there and serve that property? And to say nothing of providing adequate parking. Now that sounds like I'm opening the door for us proposing more regulation. Well, more what I would like to see is at least an interim step where we find out from our insurance provider, MCIT, or whoever we're supposed to use for a resource, what is our liability if we would be aware of those situations and not take action? So you get the situation where one of these properties, which we would have approved, and maybe there's a fire. Maybe there's an accident. You know, maybe there's an attempted homicide, criminal issue. Do we have contingent, you know, when you're looking to sue somebody, you're looking at all possible targets. When we have situations where the infrastructure doesn't exist, what's our liability?
And probably to piggyback on that, maybe, Lee, is, you know, when you get your homeowner's policy, I would assume they would probably look into that. I just remember my days on the township board, you know, we had lake properties where they want that lane that's canopied with trees. And I mean, I'm on Freeport Fire, and last year we helped Melrose on Big Birch Lake, and we went through the similar thing. It was, there's $1 million homes on a one lane township road where you're backing, you know, down and trying to stay, you know, people have to stay back so we can get in and outs. And, you know, you would hope at some point even the residents would say, you know what, we need to make this a road to get in and out, because the cost of these properties, you know, are high.
Yeah, the emergency that we're trying to accommodate could be theirs. And when you start, we just, our lake place is served by Stearns Electric, and you know, they had just completed their 4-year program clearing trees out of their right away for their power line. Yeah, and the lake folks, some of our neighbors, had nearly had a cerebral hemorrhage. They're going to remove our trees. Well, yeah, they're going to make it less likely for you to have an interruption of service by a tree falling on your power line. Has that ever entered your mind? And yeah, made for interesting coffee chatter. But yeah, let's see if there's a point where there's a liability for the county. We're aware of this, and you didn't do anything. I mean, that sounds like a potential court case to me.
Mr. Chair, yeah, Lee, I totally agree with you. And you mentioned, the issues with fire, but also just being on the shoreline, you've got water rescue. Especially when you're talking drowning, minutes are so valuable. And so, getting that care out there as quickly as possible, or somebody being not so smart out on the ice to get them rescued perhaps too.
Can't get to them.
Yeah.
Can't help them out.
Yeah, and this is not just for the rentals, but maybe, just for the public in general. What do we think about having that access? So,
or for every single household, right? I mean, it's every life, and it's every life that might be coming on a public access part, as I think you're indicating.
Anything that happens where the usage on these inadequate infrastructure things becomes more intensive, and it isn't, wouldn't be limited to rentals, but just suddenly that rare occurrence where a large extended family actually gets along and they take turns using this property. Well, it's a more intensive use. It's not a rental. And is there contingent liability for the local public body to not provide for this? Also, the only observation I had when we were talking about the 5G stuff before, for the townships who have declined participation to that point, is there a way that we could offer a way to participate at a reduced level? My point being is that, number one, you answered the question that I had, what's the timeline deadline? But the second thing is there a way we can involve them at a reduced level? So when subsequent funding becomes available, that door is still open to them without them at this point buying the full tilt boogie option that we would appreciate them adopting now. And I don't expect an answer to this right now, but I hope we keep that in mind again as we go forward. That's all I got.
Yeah. Commissioner Morgan?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Persky?
A couple of things. First of all, last Friday we had groundbreaking for Highway 23, and the three of us were out there along with Jody, and I know Lee and Terrell, you folks have supported that project very well. It's going to be nice to see, having that 4-lane now from Wilmer all the way to Foley. And it was encouraging too, Senator Howe was there as well, and he was proposing that we get the whole thing done, from the Twin Ports down to South Dakota, which I think is a vision we'd all like to see happen. So if you've been driving out there, it's happening. And there's the detour. I don't know if it started yet, Jeff?
May 6th. No, May
16th.
16th.
But
yes.
yeah.
Next Monday. I think it's next Monday.
Next week.
Yeah, it'll be staring you in the face if you're driving that way. And then also, I got a request from Phil Ringstrom to support an enhanced service for the veterans, a veterans center here in St. Cloud through the VA. I think there's a proposal through the legislature. Mayor Kleiss had mentioned it in the State of the City address as well. And I think it is Eric Putnam is carrying the bill, and a number of others are carrying the bill as well. And Phil had asked me if we would give a letter of support to that if we're encouraged to do that. So I don't know if we need a motion on that or just consent that we would support that.
Should the discussion be with Mr. Vasky first to do that?
I'm fine.
And he probably can just send it.
Yeah, I would, that would be good if we approach him, and then if it's
In part,
fine.
too, Phil knows this, we don't write separate letters on every single thing, because we support lots of things.
Right, well, he made the request,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, I think we can see what Mr. Vasky thinks about that, and we could still write a letter if
Yeah.
Yep.
you think it's appropriate, yeah.
Okay, that would be good. And then I had something in my box, a concern from one of the residents out in St. Joe Township about milk and honey. I don't know, did you folks get it as well? I'll give you a copy of that. And meeting with the township also, they've had some concerns about the CUP and what is happening out there. And they'd like to see those issues resolved if they could, so.
I don't think that's possible.
You know,
No, I mean, it's, these people have taken a position, and that's how it is. And I mean, we can participate. I guess that's about as polite as I can make it. But relative to restricting milk and honey any more than where we're at right now, gosh, I grew up in a farmstead situation that throughout the lifetime, urban encroachment came more and more and more to the edge, to the property, and now the property's part of it. Gosh, when you look at the proximity of the freeway to milk and honey, what don't you see that I see? So my empathy for that particular situation is limited. That was nice. You know,
Took a few
back
words.
in the day, I'd have used that to describe my position as 2 words, but I'm getting better.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I'll
and I
just,
think the county staff has given us, all the events and, stated that, they've met the conditions, so.
and that's the concern, is that they believe that they haven't met the conditions. And I think if they haven't met the conditions, that should be looked at.
Yeah.
When they're talking about their windows
They have.
rattling from the music, that becomes an issue. And that was something that was not necessarily proposed when Milk and Honey came in. They were saying they were going to put a cider.
They're always going to
operation.
find an objection.
And so it has evolved to something different than what they had proposed. And likewise with the structure that's being put on there, they want to make sure that it's adequate and safe. And there seems to be maybe some bending of the issues out there as well. So we'll see where the process goes.
Okay, Commissioner Clark.
I was going to say, who would have thought we'd still been here? Of course, we have a broken clock, so it's really only 5 to 9. Let's see. So Joe knows this. The reason why I wasn't at the ribbon cutting is we were expecting our latest grandchild, who was born this weekend. So our little granddaughter Juniper has a new sweet little sister. Very excited about that. I'm excited too. I don't know if everybody's going to be able to stay for the conversation, the case study we're going to have after our meeting's adjourned. There's been some really good, interesting work going on that's facilitated through the U of M with regard to a number of communities, more recently bringing in counties. Commissioner Persky and I have gotten to participate in some of these events with regard to what's next with energy, and this board has a lot of good background and information, and the community of Sarbec actually is a really good case study in part, not just on this energy piece, but just about how they engage their citizens. That ought to be really pretty good, and I think we've had enough other conversations, so I'll stop there.
Okay. Yeah, and I would like to piggyback on Commissioner Persky. We did attend the event in Roscoe, the ribbon cutting, and our sand throwing, I guess. And it was very well attended. I mean, it was a good event, and there was a lot of excitement, I think, and that was a good thing. I guess I just maybe had one thing being I noticed the sheriff is still sitting in here. If did you guys have a training exercise Sunday on Pelican Lake by St. Anna? Okay. Well, you noticed the sheriff's department unloading 2 or 3 boats and doing so I was just curious if they were doing training exercise, but. We would have been training our new staff. Well, it's kind of what the thought was, that maybe they were doing the people that come on for the summer, maybe. Okay. Other than that, Mr. Williams.
A couple things. Just in reference to Milk and Honey, I do know our staff is working with township and the neighborhood to schedule a meeting so they can have a discussion about how this summer is going to go. The little bit of discussion about VRBOs, I'm not going to answer the liability issue, but certainly those are things that can be considered when you're looking at something like that. But we thought we would bring you back some information about that whole topic, expecting you to perhaps give direction to the Planning Commission to take this issue up at your next meeting. I forgot to mention during my broadband update that Senator Westrom and Representative Tice are both on the conference committee that is dealing with reconciling the two broadband bills. So if you run into them, let them know our case. I have, of course, communicated with them, but so we do have some influence on the conference committee. And then the case study that Commissioner Clark mentioned, our presenters cannot be here in person because they, well, yeah, I think one tested positive, probably both. So that is we've turned that into a hybrid event. They'll be through a WebEx. I did send the invitation out to some of the city folks too that I invited a number of city administrators. So maybe some of them will attend via WebEx. So we're going to, when we adjourn, we'll kind of reconvene the room here so we can hold that meeting. It was, of course, going to be all in person, but it can't be now.
Okay, thanks for the update. With that, we will adjourn, but like Mr. Williams stated, we're going to be attending a case study session dealing with a small German village and with being climate smart. So with that, we'll adjourn the regular meeting.